Hey buddies, Potato McWhiskey here. Today we're playing Sid Meier's Civilization 6 Gathering Storm with a New Frontier Pass. It's been a while since I've played Kongo, so that's who we're going to be playing today. Playing on Deity difficulty, continents and islands with a standard map size, abundant resources, all the natural wonders, old world age, legendary start position, standard temperature, wet rainfall and high sea level. I've also been playing a lot of games with the special game modes, and I think I'm going to play one without them. But that's all the settings, let's get started. This is a very nice starting location, but I actually have a couple of really tough decisions. You see, we are on a lake as a freshwater start. We don't have a river, and we have to choose between settling for freshwater or settling the coast to be able to get good harbours later on. And in my personal opinion, harbours are just so good nowadays that we're going to be settling coastally. But that kind of gives us a secondary question. Where do we settle adjacent to the coast, right? So our three choices are essentially this plains tile, this jungle tile, and this maze tile. This tile right here has a lot of advantages. It is really close to highly productive tiles and a luxury. And it also has the option to get an aqueduct later on if we need extra housing. But the problem with this tile is that the place where it would be ideal to place our harbour would actually crush a fish tile. I think I'd like a tiny bit more information, so I'm going to walk to the east. And this really didn't give me a huge amount of useful information. But I do know that if I were to settle on either of these two tiles, I would be able to get a much better harbour. I think ideally I would like to settle on the maze here. However, the problem is the maze can't aqueduct over to the fresh water. So instead I'm going to settle on this jungle tile. But the big problem with the jungle tile is that it has really bad tiles nearby. At least the maze has a jungle tile that's 2 food, 2 production on either side of it. That can be really good early game tiles. This city just has nothing in terms of tiles going for it, really. This is a really, really tough starting location. Now, the Hail Mary play that I'm considering is actually moving all the way down to this cattle and hoping that settling there kind of pays off in the long run, because this has a really good 2-2 tile, another really good 2-2 tile nearby, a really good elephant tile, and it's also settling on a cattle, which would give me +1 food, which would help me catch up a little bit. I would have to sacrifice 2 turns, though, to get over there, and I think that's what I'm going to do. All of these tiles have advantages and disadvantages, but where I place my city is really, really tough to actually decide. And I think my best bet is to try to move down towards this cattle. We also have a mountain here, which is going to be helpful if we decide to go for a campus at any point. And we were lucky enough to actually find a fishing resource nearby too. So that means I'm definitely going to want to get a harbour at some point in this game, so I'll place a pin down there. This harbour will get at least 2 adjacency from our city centre, +1 from this turtles. And if we place another district on either side here or here, we will get another +1. So this could be a +3 or even 5 harbour right here, which is pretty nice. Scouting over here to the northeast, and it seems like we are in pretty good land. We have enough land to place a few cities, and there's really good jungle nearby too. Alright, let's settle the capital. Boom, there's the boost for sailing, which is very helpful. The question is, do I want to go for sailing early this game? The great thing about the Kongo is you don't have to worry about holy sites, because religious convert means that they can't actually build holy sites or gain great profit points or found religions. However, they do gain the belief of any religion that has established itself in a majority of our cities. And we get an apostle each time we finish a mabanza or theatre square. The big problem with this, though, is that the majority of religion abilities kind of require you to have a holy site to take advantage of them. So I doubt we're going to get a huge amount of benefit from that. Really, what we want to focus on is seeing if we can maybe get our hands on relics, artifacts, and sculptures, because we get +2 food and +2 production and +4 gold from each of those. We also get 50% more great writer, great artist, great musician, and great merchant points. So we're definitely going to want to go for a theatre square commercial hub style game to take maximum advantage of that. The Nagaon Beba is our unique unit, which is basically a really good defensive unit. I don't think it's super amazing on the offense, but it is still a cheap swordsman, which makes it pretty good. The Mbanza is a fantastic district that we'll spend a little bit more time talking about, but it's basically a really good neighborhood that gives you extra food gold, and it comes really early into the game. I think my opening technology will be sailing, considering this is a water map, and being able to take advantage of the water will be really helpful. Weirdly, I'm also considering skipping scouts this game, and instead going straight for monument to try to power hard for culture. Because we get so much advantage from some of these cards early game, like maritime industries, and the theatre square is just really, really good for the Kongo in general. We're also on a water map, so there's not as much land for a scout to explore anyway. Found our very first tribal village. I'm really hoping that this gives me faith for a pantheon. No, I got a free scout. This is even better. This makes me much more confident in my monument choice, actually, because now I have a scout anyway. And I usually only get 1 scout on water maps. Lovely, we found Nazca. However, we were not the first people to find them. Their mission is for me to trigger an inspiration for state workforce. The inspiration for state workforce is to build any specialty district, so I'm considering maybe using harbors to do that. I'm a little bit worried at how far away my warrior is from my capital, and while I would love to continue to explore, I'm going to start walking him back. It's an honor to meet you, Queen Amenatore of Nubia. Looks like she settled far to my south. I'll send her a delegation because on Deity, the AI will always accept a delegation on the first turn as long as you're playing on standard speed. And that little bit of a relationship boost can be very, very helpful in preventing them from denouncing you and potentially even getting a friendship with them. Ooh, nice one. We found Delicate Arch. We're not going to be able to take advantage of that this game because it's inside Nubia's territory, but finding it did give us a little bit of era score. I'm lucky enough I brought my warrior back because a barb camp spawned right here, and I wanted to actually scout a little bit more in the northwestern area here because I think this is where the majority of my settlements will go if there's good land up here. Monument finished in the capital, and I don't think there's a lot to be gained right now from building a galley or anything like that. Probably my best bet is to work on something like a scout if I wanted to get a little bit more information, or even pick up a slinger to help me defend my early territory. I would really like to work on a settler, but I'm not in a huge rush to do that this game because I'm feeling pretty secure. I don't feel boxed in at all. It really depends on what happens in this area of the Fog of War. I would really like to go for a fast celestial navigation this game though to pick up the harbour. This isn't normally a strategy I would go for, but I think these early trade routes could be huge for me. Looks like the Ottomans are to our north because I just got a whiff of their scout coming out of the Fog of War from that direction. I'll send him a delegation as well to keep him nice and happy with me. We also just got Code of Laws, which means we can now happily plug in our first government. I think getting a Pantheon on Congo is really, really important because it's the only thing they can really do with faith. So despite normally going for urban planning, I will pick up God King, and then I'm going to plug in Discipline to be able to clear out that barb camp a little bit more securely. Speaking of clearing out a barb camp, I'm going to kill this here, and that will net me a little bit of era score as well as some nice gold from killing it. We also found Vilnius to our west. Now this is actually a really good position for Vilnius to be because it means that Nazca and Vilnius are forming like a natural barrier, almost like terrain, between me and Amenatore of Nubia. That means I can feel pretty secure if I can get a settlement here. They're going to have a hard time attacking me through this way, because I can just park an archer here, and any units they bring towards me will get cut down. I would kind of prefer if the mountains were positioned more forward of the city. If there was like a lake tile here and I could settle a freshwater city here, this would be much more defendable. But as it stands, this is about the best I can hope for. Vilnius's mission is to trigger an inspiration for early empire, which means I'm going to want to grow my civilization to at least 6 population. I think I'll pick up foreign trade first this game. Having access to early game traders can be really useful for boosting your relationship with the AI in city-states. We also found Menelik, who is over here in Lalabella. I'm a little bit concerned about how close he is, and that there's already loyalty pressure over here to the east. I'm feeling very, very boxed in. So I'm definitely going to rush early empire this game and try to get as many cities out as possible with as few military units to defend myself as possible. Slinger finished in the capital. That'll be used to defend and scout a little bit. And now we're going to start mass producing settlers in the capital. Let's make sure we're working tiles with good production to get that out as fast as possible. 10 turns is a reasonable speed for our first settler. Looks like Phoenicia just declared war on Ethiopia. I haven't actually met Phoenicia yet, but I can assume that she's somewhere to the west or north of Ethiopia. The good news is the Ottomans aren't directly to my north, so there is still some really good room for me to keep expanding. Looks like Ethiopia is expanding to the northeast, which is really, really good news for me. I'd be very, very worried if they were forward settling me right now, because it means we would almost certainly have to go to war at some point. I thought I saw the Ottoman scout come from the north, but apparently they're to my east. It's really bad that they forward settled me here, because I don't have nearly enough room anymore. I only have this thin strip of land to settle, and there's no really efficient way to put cities down here. I'm going to settle my city here on this marsh tile for a variety of reasons. First of all, it will block Ethiopia from settling too much closer to me. Second of all, it still leaves some nice city locations available to me later on in the game. And third of all, it has pretty good early game tiles, and this is going to be the city I use to try to produce a bit of military and builders. I'm 6 turns away from early empire, which means I want to switch off of this tech actually. I want to actually get the boost from growing to 6 population, and in about 6 turns, both of these cities will hit another population level, which means their combined population will be 6, and that should trigger the inspiration for early empire. That'll also net me an envoy with Vilnius, which will give me +1 culture in my capital. So I'll switch off early empire and head towards craftsmanship. Looks like we met Dido. Let's send her a delegation as well. I want to keep as many people happy with me in this game as possible. The more people like me, the less likely they are going to declare war on me. And right now I'm just incredibly vulnerable. I'm making half the science and half the culture of anyone in the game, and my military is about the quarter of their power. There's the boost for early empire, and that means we're going to want to plug in the colonization card. The problem is I haven't accumulated the 25 faith I need to get a pantheon. So I might hold off on plugging in God King just for a little bit. I will, however, go ahead and buy a trader in my capital. Realistically, I should buy a builder because I have this horses and this turtle to improve. But I feel like a trader would get me extra relations with Ethiopia, and that might help prevent him from declaring war on me, because I forgot to send him a delegation. I guess I'll get the builder. Production is king, and I can get 2 luxuries online as well to sell to the AI, so this is probably a better decision, even if it's not really what I want to do. I'm going to negotiate open borders with Ethiopia. This will give us a small relationship boost. It will cost me a bit of gold, but I feel like that relationship boost is worth the money I spend on it. Improve the horses in our capital. That'll give us +1 production, the boost towards horseback riding, and +2 horses per turn that we can sell to the AI. I'm also going to switch away from craftsmanship because I'm going to be able to improve 3 tiles before I research it. So instead I'll work on mysticism, and since I'm about to get a pantheon, this will be boosted as well. Looks like Nubia built the pyramids, which is unfortunate because I usually like building it. But I didn't have any easily accessible desert tiles in my empire. In terms of pantheons, I think our main choices are God of the Sea for the extra production from fishing boats, God of Pastures for the extra culture from pastures, God of Craftsman for the extra production and faith from strategic resources. You have to remember, as Kongo, we have very few ways to generate faith, so even a little bit is a huge advantage. Divine Spark is arguably the best pantheon in the game for Kongo because they get so many extra great people points, but I really feel like I'm going to need that production and faith. Plus, it makes my horse tile look incredible, and everyone loves a really nice tile. Improve the turtles in our capital, giving us yet another amazing tile. 3 food, 1 production, 1 gold, and 1 science. That science is actually helping carry us here in the early game, because otherwise we'd be really struggling. We've got our 3rd settler, and I need to make a decision about where I want to settle. I could either go for this city and lock down all of this land to the south and have a really strong border with Nubia, or I could head up to the north here and grab some extra luxuries. But I think the best choice is to head east, grab this really good horse tile, a decent harbour, and sort of block off the Ottomans from forward settling me. Finished a slinger in Kinshasa, and I'm going to get another one. Slingers are really good early game defensive units because they can upgrade into archers, and you always want to get at least 3 of them, because with 3 archers, you can pretty much hold off most early game aggression. This is a little bit concerning that the Ottomans are moving troops to the west. Let's see how he feels about getting open borders and if maybe he'll pay me. Yeah, he'll give me 6 gold per turn for open borders, which is really good. Now I'm curious if he'll also declare a friendship. Okay, so since he declared a friendship with me, that means I don't have to worry about him declaring war on me for 30 turns. So I basically have 30 turns to prepare myself for any potential aggression from the Ottomans. That means I don't have to dedicate many military resources over here to the eastern half of my empire. I decided to settle on this cattle tile instead of this horse tile, even though earlier I had planned to settle the horses. And it's mainly because I actually want to have the horse tile inside my empire, and if I settle on this tile, I won't be able to settle another city to the north. So this just seems like a good compromise. Even though it's not really an amazing compromise, it does have a slightly better harbour than the horse tile city, but that horse tile is going to be so powerful with my pantheon that I'm going to want to keep it around. If we look at the map, I only have room for 3 more cities. That means I'm not going to want to appoint Magnus to be able to get the provision promotion. I will still want him for the plot harvest and feature removals. I'll be having to do a lot of that this game and moving him around efficiently in order to get my empire up and running and be competitive with the AI. Instead, I'll probably go for Pingala because he kind of helps me take advantage of the taller cities that I can get as the Congo. So we'll appoint Pingala into our capital to get a little bit of extra science and culture. I'm also going to buy this 2nd turtle tile and improve it. That'll boost craftsmanship for me, giving me access to some new cards, as well as boosting celestial navigation so I can go for early harbours this game. I really do think that trade routes are going to be my only way out of this hole that I'm in. I have 2 copies of turtles, one of which I'm going to sell to Ethiopia because they'll pay me 7 gold per turn for them. The other person I'm going to sell them to is Dido because she's going to pay me 5 gold per turn for them, which is basically the best deal I could get. I'm going to need that gold to upgrade my slingers into archers, which I just unlocked. In terms of dedications, I just got a normal age, which means I think I take free inquiry here because I tend to find in a civ without any sort of religious benefit, free inquiry is the easiest one to generate score using. Owing to the fact that there's a bunch of really easily boosts available, like for example building a quarry, mining a resource, building an iron mine, making a trade route, and owning galleys or building a watermill. Celestial navigation is finished, and I'm going to want to start my harbours as soon as possible. I still do need 3 more settlers in my capital, so it'll be a while before they can do it. And I also need some builders in my other coastal city. I will go ahead and unlock mining though, because that has the potential to give me 3, if not 4 possible Eurekas. Dido will actually pay me for open borders, and she doesn't have any horses either, so I'm going to sell her 20 of those and see if she'll give me some extra money. And picking up 4 gold per turn for open borders with some horses is a really good early game deal. I'm already positive 30 gold per turn on turn 49, and that's mostly just down to really good trade deals with the AI. I found Babylon. Babylon is amazing because they're a scientific city-state, and you can get science from them by actually getting great works of writing and artifacts, which are 2 things that we're going to be getting in abundance this game. So I'm very, very happy to see Babylon in this game. I don't think Hong Kong, Vilnius, or Nazca is really going to have a huge impact on this game, but Babylon is going to be a city-state that we want to fight for. In fact, to the point where I'm considering building campuses just to get the great scientist for this mission. We've got our 4th settler out now, and I need to make a decision about which city I settle. It really just depends on where I think the AI will settle next. I don't think the Ottomans are going to settle here, and I think the Ethiopia is either going to settle up here somewhere or over here. So I think I would rather defend this spot, even though it's not really coastal or amazing. It does have decent tiles and potential expansion, and provides me with a really, really solid border with Nubia. Kinshasa has finished both the slinger and the archer that I set it to make, which means I can actually switch it over to something more productive. I don't think I'm actually going to be able to get a great scientist this game, so I don't know if a campus is worth my time. But if I do get an extra settler from this city, it would cut down the total amount of time I have to spend making settlers in my capital by a lot. Since we don't have a lot of room, getting settlers out quickly is really, really important. It looks like Menelik might accept a friendship with me, so let's see if we can get him. Brilliant. I'm also going to send him a delegation to keep our relationship high, and we'll be able to continue our friendship with him. This means I'm feeling incredibly secure, because the only 2 threats in the game to me are basically Ethiopia and the Ottomans, and both of them are my friends, which means they can't actually declare war on me. This means I feel really, really safe going hard for economic things like settlers and traders. Let's settle our 4th city right here, Mabanza Mbata. We'll begin working this really nice coffee tile, which we are going to want to get improved as soon as possible, to the point where I'm going to immediately rush out a builder in this city. Bronze working is nice because it reveals iron. I'm really hoping that we manage to hit iron. We also have access to drama and poetry, so we can start placing our theatre squares. Looks like I was incredibly unlucky and absolutely no iron spawned anywhere near me. That's a bit unfortunate considering the desert down here, for example, is filled with iron. Kinshasa, we're going to try to go for at least a +5 industrial zone using the aqueduct and dam adjacency. I definitely also want to get an entertainment complex and a theatre square in this city, but I don't know where I'm going to place them. And the reason I'm not sure where to place them is because the ideal formation for theatre squares is something like this. 2 cities cooperating to get really high adjacency on their theatre squares. I almost had the perfect spot over here for a theatre square mega triangle, or whatever you want to call it. But the problem is that I've respawned here, which means I can't quite fit them in the way that I want. I think this arrangement though is pretty acceptable. 2 theatre squares cooperating between these 2 cities. The reason I made this decision is because these tiles are mostly flat, only one of them is a hill, so I'm only sacrificing a little bit of production. And I still have plenty of room for other things. Coastal hills are less useful in culture games because you can't put seaside resorts on them anyway. I'm also going to set up a cooperative diamond between Abanza Kongo and Abanza Bata, where they'll be able to get a really high adjacency on their theatre squares. And then that leaves only 1 city left for Kinshasa to cooperate with, which is this one to the north. I've got all my theatre squares for my empire planned now, and it's really good when you unlock your key district to actually start planning where you want to put everything. It really helps to prevent you from making mistakes, and sure enough, there could be strategic resources that pop up here that ruin my plans, but I'm okay with adapting my plans as long as the plans I have are fundamentally good. Theatre squares are my most important district this game, so I'm going to make sure that I plant them down early. The earlier I place them down, the less they'll cost me. Now that's not true for tiles with jungle on them, because ideally I want to use magnets to chop some of those tiles. However, I am willing to sacrifice maybe 1 tile here. So in Mabanza Bata, I'll buy that tile. Then I am crushing a mine here, which doesn't feel amazing to me. But I would rather have the theatre square down than a potential mine. But in these 2 cities where there's potential builder chops, I'm going to hold off on placing them for now. The reason why builder chops are so important to me is because I have a very small empire. When you have a small empire, you have less tiles to improve. If you have less tiles to improve, that means you need less builders over the course of the game. Since builders' costs increase the more builders that you make, that means for another empire, they're going to spend way more per builder charge over the course of the game to improve all of their cities. That means I have some extra value that I can extract by using some of my builder charges here. Since I'm not going to be able to get as many or use as many, this gives me a way to translate production into something useful like extra production, extra food, all that sort of stuff. 8.9 gold for trading with Byblos is incredible. So I'll take that deal since that gives me nearly a 25% boost to my currency. I said currency because the boost popped up. What I meant to say is my gold per turn. Ooh, there's a bit of a dust storm over in Nubia. I really hope that doesn't blow over towards me. I'm a little bit concerned about this settler here. I do seem to be standing where they want to settle, so they've kind of frozen in place and are a little bit confused. But I don't know how long it's going to last for me. And it actually does look like I managed to get them to back off by occupying my settlement location. This is why it's really, really important to have units out in front of where you want to settle and just park them on the tiles to prevent the AI from stealing them. A slightly worse player who didn't know how to do that would have lost one of their cities this game because of that. I think that's an example of a really small little gameplay thing that can have a dramatic effect on the outcome of your game. As much as I want to unlock Magnus right now, I really do feel like the extra science from Pingala is going to serve me very well this game. I'm super behind the AI in terms of science, so I need as much as I can to not fall too far behind, because I need to get crossbowmen in a timely manner. Probably somewhere around turn 110 if I'm going to be able to survive into the mid-game. I don't have time to build 2 galleys to get the shipbuilding boost, and I would also like the era score, so I'm going to go ahead and buy them. I'll grab the first one in Mbuji Mai. That'll net me plus 2 era score, as well as a unit that I can scout to the east and maybe look for some islands to settle, because I'm definitely going to need more room, which means either settling more cities or going to war with someone. I'll get the second galley in the newly settled city of Mambuila. That'll boost shipbuilding, netting me an extra era score. It also looks like there might be a bit of land here, so picking up shipbuilding will allow me to actually settle it. Settling that city did break my promise to Ethiopia and give me 100 grievances with them. But because I'm losing 9 grievances per turn, and it's going to take 16 more turns for our friendship to evaporate, I have plenty of time to atone for my sins, and I don't even have to worry about how much they hate me right now. Seriously, they have a minus 20 opinion penalty right now that I can basically ignore. I've decided it's time to start the harbour in Mbuji Mai. I would like to get the theatre square up, but I think getting the harbour first is important for me. Those trade routes are going to be massive. And I think I've done all the manual scouting that matters with this scout, so I'm just going to put him on auto explore and let him figure out the world on his own. We found some very nice open land to the south of the Ottomans. That's going to be potentially game changing for me. It might mean I want to, instead of going tall, I might want to go get my government plaza and boost as hard as I can for settlers. There's political philosophy, we can pick up our government. I'm going to go for Classical Republic this game. That's so that I can plug in 3 economic policy cards: colonization, urban planning, and income. These 3 cards cover all of the things that I want to be producing right now, since I'm powering hard in SimCity mode, since nobody can actually go to war with me. I'll also plug in Diplomatic League. That'll allow me to use my envoy to get 2 with Babylon instantly, which gets me closer to being their suzerain and nets me 1 science per turn. I'm going to go ahead and research recorded history next, because I want that governor title. I've been holding on to my gold reserves to be able to do stuff like this, buying tiles to improve with horses and stuff. But now is definitely the time to start working on my theatre squares. I need to start generating great writers as soon as possible, because there's already someone working on them. And I don't mind losing the first 1 or 2 of these guys, but I pretty much want to secure every single one after that. So aside from this harbour, pretty much every other city is going to be hardcore working on theatre squares. Right now, builders cost me 62 production. That means a builder charge costs me roughly 20 production. So I have to make a decision. Is it worth it to chop this rainforest tile for 22 production? It already has a coffee on it, and normally you want to keep a rainforest on it. So by using this charge, I increase the cost of my builders slightly, but I get 22 food back. That'll allow me to grow this city and potentially work another really good tile, like this wine, for example. But by actually getting rid of the jungle, I take 1 food off of this plantation. But that's not really a big deal, because plantations get another +1 food later in the game, and really you only care if a tile's making 2 food or more. since this tile will make 2 food eventually, I feel very safe just chopping for surplus here. I end up ahead about 2 production and 24 food. Now there is an opportunity cost because I could use this builder for other things, like for example chopping this forest here. But I think this is a very, very safe way to just get a little bit of value out of a tile that's not going to be able to build a lumber mill because there's a luxury resource on it. Because a plantation is going here anyway, and whether there's a jungle here or not doesn't really change that. So we'll chop. That'll boost the city instantaneously to 3 population, allowing us to work this wine. And then I'll use the remaining builder charges once I pick up irrigation to put down plantations, which will give me extra housing in this city and some extra gold. There's some really, really beautiful desert land down here, and normally desert is pretty terrible. However, there's a couple of spots here, if I go into the appeal mode, that are perfect for getting up some seaside resorts, namely these 2 jutting islands right here. So I think in an ideal scenario, I would maybe settle a city fairly late game here, but I definitely want to settle somewhere south of the Ottomans to secure another foothold on a continent. I'd have to make the same sort of calculation for harvesting here. And here it's pretty no-brainer. The harvest would significantly speed up my harbour, which would get me a lot of gold. And it's still a surplus, but if I wait 1 turn for irrigation to finish, I might actually get more value from this chop, so I am going to wait. That's because the value of your chops are based on what percentage of the tech or civic tree that you've researched. So if you wait for a tech to finish, you might get a little bit more value out of a chop. There's irrigation unlocked. Let's place our first plantation here, netting us an extra 2 gold, as well as access to coffee that we can sell to the AI. Let's declare a friendship with Suleiman, then also see if maybe he wants to buy my coffee for a good price. Looks like he'll pay 13 gold per turn, which I think is one of the best prices you can get for a luxury. I'm just going to double check and see if anyone else will pay more. This is the best deal I'm ever going to get for coffee. So I think I might even grab silk and wine off of him, and then when I improve my wine, I still end up in a better position because I can sell my wine off to someone else instead. So just by improving this coffee tile, I got 9 gold per turn and 8 luxuries to spread across my cities. That's why it's so important to learn how to trade with the AI efficiently. I wonder if Dido will also give me a friendship. And it looks like she did. She is now my declared friend. Having really good relationships with the AI is really important in a culture game because you eventually want to get alliances so that you can get more diplomatic favor and have more influence over the World Congress. Technologically, I've kind of been meandering around hoping that I'd be able to pick up some of these boosts, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. I think my next big technology is going to be lumber mills and then crossbowmen. Lumber mills so that I have a way to get production on my tiles that is not tied to hills, and then crossbowmen so that I can defend myself from any aggression. Depending on the political situation though, if I can get my alliances with people, I might not need to get crossbowmen this game. And you can see we did in fact research another technology, and that gives me an extra 1 food and 1 production on this chop, which might not seem like much, but this sort of small optimization can be valuable if you were doing something on a forest and we're also using magnets with multipliers. Chopping here also boosted the city to 4 population, so I can safely place my theatre square now. That locks the price in, and we'll get to work on that later on. I finished another settler in my capital, and I'm not really sure where to send it. It is one option to go ahead and settle this island and turn it into a gold generation island. It would be extremely efficient for generating gold, but it would have very, very weak production for most of the game. The only real productive tile it has is a deer tile. That's still pretty good, and the earlier I settle this city, the more gold I'll get from it. But I think the better solution is to maybe send it down over to here and secure a foothold on this other landmass. I know it's technically the same landmass, but because the Ottomans are blocking me from settling here, it's kind of a different landmass if you like strategically. Since I've identified a whole bunch of new land to settle, I'm going to get to work on a government plaza in my capital so that I can begin to mass settle using Magnus. Now, my very last city on this small patch of land has been placed down, and it is Pinda. This city is also going to rush a harbour. Well, I say rush, but it's going to be a very, very slow build. This city will need a lot of help in the form of builder charges sent to it from better performing cities. And that's why I have to go for the harbour, because the harbour is a very, very long-term investment. So you need to get it finished really, really early to actually get value out of it. There's sort of a similar decision you have to make when you're placing any luxury resource. So for example, I could harvest the woods here, lose +1 production per tile on this tile, still be able to place a camp and get my harbour much faster. So I'm going to harvest there. That'll finish the harbour faster, and then I can get to work on the lighthouse. The lighthouse will give me extra food on all of the resource tiles, but it also gets me slightly faster towards getting the shipyard. The shipyard is the real powerhouse of any coastal based play, because it gives you +1 food and bonus production equal to the adjacency bonus of the district. That means I could very comfortably pick up an extra 3 production in this city. But I could also double that using the naval infrastructure card that I'm working my way towards. So not only would I pick up 6 production from this harbour, I'll also pick up +1 production on all of these other tiles. That's because the other effect of the shipyard is it gives +1 production to all unimproved coastal and lake tiles for this city. And that'll actually turn these coastal tiles into really useful tiles for the city. Considering it's lacking any really good land tiles, it's my only real way to make this city useful. Let's go ahead and improve the wine, and since I already bought wine off of someone, I can go ahead and sell it to the AI. Amanator was the only person without wine, so they're going to give me a nice 3 gold per turn. Not the most amazing trade, but I still think I'm coming out positive. I've actually decided to purchase the lighthouse in here. I do lose 2 turns of production, but I end up with a much better turtle tile, really good housing in this city, and I can get to work on another trade route to really help my capital city along. But that's going to be it for this episode. I hope you guys are really enjoying this sort of semi-over-explained gameplay. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!